Hi, my name is Rebecca Thompson Hitt. I'm the founder and executive director of the Consciously Parenting Project, and this is the Consciously Parenting Podcast. Today we're going to be talking with Tracy Cassels, and we're going to be talking about attachment, which is, it's a topic that comes up a lot with my parents. You know, what is attachment? What is this attachment parenting thing? Do I have to do all these tenets in order to have a secure attachment? And so I wanted to have a conversation. And so I thought about Tracy, and Tracy's been studying a lot of this. So I'm going to let her introduce herself in case you aren't familiar with her and her work. And we're going to dive right into what is attachment. So thank you so much, Tracy.
Well, thank you, Rebecca. Well, as you said, my name is Tracy Cassels. I am the founder and head writer, creator for Evolutionary Parenting. I have a PhD in developmental psychology, which has been the main crux of all my research and understanding. And I also have a master's in clinical psychology. So from a more practical standpoint, some research there. I'm a parent to 2 kids. I've got my daughter who's 7 and my son who's a year and a half. And I also, on the side, happen to work with a lot of families dealing with issues pertaining to sleep or, gentle parenting more generally. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, yes. So I know you've spent a lot of time in all of those academic years that you have spent looking at attachment, looking at the idea of healthy development. So
Yes.
Let's talk about this idea of attachment. What is it? What is it that we're talking about?
Really what it is we're getting down to talking about the relationship between a child and their parent or a caregiver or another adult, because it can be any. Most commonly, we look at it between children and their mothers, oddly, but you can also look at it between adults. But for our purposes, really, we're looking at the foundational relationship that a child has with a caregiver.
All right. And so what does that have to do with development and healthy development, this idea of attachment? So what are we looking at?
Really, attachment comes down to the foundation of our children's later behaviors, their later relationships, their later emotional competency, their feelings of safety, security. It is the base. It's if you're building a house for your child, if your child is a house and you're building them up, it's the foundation. It is the point at which everything else kind of builds up above it. So if we think about, I'm sure a lot of people have at least a cursory understanding of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Mm-hmm. So at the bottom we have, everyone has their physiological needs. They have their food, water, rest, warmth, house over their head. And above that, they have the safety needs, this feeling of security and feeling safe in the world. Those two together provide our basic needs. And attachment is actually what provides those basic needs. The more we as caregivers provide for these basic needs, the better off our children are. And although we think in our society often, if someone's withholding food or withholding water, we immediately see that's abuse. That's awful. We don't think as much when parents withhold these safety needs, when they withhold the ability for a child to feel secure and feel safe in their environment. And yet that is the essence of attachment, is the ability for us to help our children feel safe and secure in a world that is, quite frankly, rather terrifying at the beginning.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I kept thinking about, for so long, childcare was really pinned to those basic needs at the bottom of the hierarchy. Okay, well, you've got a clean diaper. Mm-hmm. I fed you. So what else could you possibly need? And so attachment it's the rest of that. It's that security. Yes. It's the safety. It's all of those things that, maybe older relatives have said to us. If we're caring for our children in a way that's very responsive, then, wait, why are you doing that? They're, mm-hmm. You've done, just put them down in their crib and let them cry. You've met their needs. Yes. And so it's that recognizing that there are these other layers of need, and they are need that are important for healthy development.
And they are, and the more research we have on them, they really do fall under basic needs just as much as our physiological needs.
Mm.
So it's hard to, I mean, we have to understand that obviously our physiological needs speak to our ability to stay alive. If we don't have food, we starve to death. If we don't have water, we're dehydrated, and so on. So that is, why we think about these. But the need to feel safe is absolutely as essential as those. If we do not feel safe, you can have all the food, water, warmth, everything in the world, you are not going to thrive. And that's, I think, really what we need parents to understand when it comes to attachment is you're building that ability to thrive. You're building their ability to move beyond always worrying about just think of the right term here. You really want them to be able to move beyond being fearful for their own existence.
Mm. Right. So basically when we're only getting those essential physiological needs, yes, we've got enough water, yes, we've got enough food, but we aren't getting those other needs met. We're basically in a state of survival and we're not thriving. We're in that, and we want our kids to thrive. We want them to move beyond subsistence. Yes, I can get by. We want them to thrive.
Yeah. And a lot of that stems from the fact that, we are social mammals. So this is where it comes. We think about other mammals that are solitary. Their physiological needs are all they really have to worry about. When they have those, they do fine, they thrive, they move on. For us, we are constantly in contact and in various relationships with other people. And so we have to feel safe and secure in our engagement with the world around us. So we may be well fed, we may have water, we may have a beautiful house over our heads, we can be warm, we may have toys when it comes to our children, tons and tons of toys. But there's always stuff going on that gives us a feeling of anxiety. And the way in which we interact with our children is really our ability to help them cope with those periods of anxiety so that they can feel safe when new things pop up, when new people crop up. And then that enables them to move beyond this stage of worrying about safety, to worry about building positive relationships, making friends, accomplishing things, being outgoing and trying new things, reaching our potential. All those different things all come after we feel safe. And if we don't feel safe, those things become harder and harder to accomplish.
So it sounds like almost a pulling inward. So it's attachment allows our children to move out into the world, into relationships with others, into different experiences, but that they can't do that if they don't have that house with the foundation.
And we want to be careful to say they can't, because it's not wholly causal, right? We know that it influences their ability to do that, but that's also going to rest on a host of other factors, such as their internal temperament, other factors in the environment around them, the type of people they happen to meet. So it's not that they definitely won't be able to reach out. It's that they're far more likely to have problems in that regard. And those problems don't necessarily mean that they won't reach out to other people. You can see individuals who have had insecure types of attachment have relationships with others. It's that we would not call those relationships healthy. So they may not necessarily withdraw from other people entirely. They may be trying consistently to get a stronger attachment to someone else, and therefore become overly clingy and needy, codependent, etc.
Yeah, I think we've all either experienced that or we have, on any side of that.
Yes, and that's it too. We don't want to say that, just because you've experienced it once, oh my goodness, you must have had an insecure attachment. Right. So these are things that are very fluid, and it's difficult to live in this kind of gray area where, we know how important attachment is because it does predict quite well a lot of these outcomes, but it's not 100%. It's not saying that if you have this, you will definitely struggle here, or if you have a secure attachment, you won't face any relationship problems. It's not quite how it works because there's so many other variables at play. But it means that you're far more likely, if you have a secure attachment, to not struggle with these things, to be more outgoing, to have stronger relationships, have more self-confidence, and so on.
Okay. So they're correlations. We're basically trying to give our kids the best possible chance at a healthy development, at healthy relationships.
Yes.
And
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not, and I wouldn't want to say to go so far as correlations. We have a lot of longitudinal, the way people understand correlations, causation is difficult here. Too often I hear people misusing this correlation isn't causation. But there is an element of causal. It's that in research, we don't look at causal in terms of it 100% predicts everything. Something can, have a causal relationship, but it still only predicts a certain proportion of the variance that we're looking at, which has just gotten really technical on you. But I could do a whole other topic on how to understand this. So it's more to say that it isn't just a spurious correlation between the two. Really, there is a lot of evidence that early attachment influences later well-being. It's not always going to influence in the same way. It's not going to influence to the same degree. And there's going to be a host of other factors that have to be acknowledged when we look at these later behaviors.
Right. Yeah. And so attachment, going back to the very beginning, is about the relationship.
Yes.
And it's about a safe relationship
exactly.
to be in, so that then they can go out and explore the world and then come back. And I know one of the terms that is often used with attachment is a secure base.
Exactly.
So it's that space, usually with the mother, but parents, caregivers, where the child goes out into the world, whatever it looks like at that particular stage of development for the child, and then has that secure place to come back to.
Yeah. And it's important to note that it's not a linear relationship where as soon as they start exploring the world, they don't come back to that perhaps more needy stage again. Right? So a lot of times our kids face stressors and illnesses, and that's when they go back to that safe base. That secure base is when they need us more. So you see it kind of ebbing and flowing. Early in development, we are their entire basis of safety, right? From just an evolutionary perspective. They die without someone taking care of them. So they have a very strong biological impetus to stay close to someone and say, hey, take care of me.
Right.
And that's why they look so cute. It's why, when we start hitting the end of our wits, they start smiling and we forgive everything and so on. So these are biological realities to promote attachment. Their skin is soft to promote touch because this is important in the bonding process.
Oh, and they smell so good.
They smell. So exactly. All these things are hardwired in them. They don't even mean to. They're just there, and that's their survival mechanism. And as we see them get older, as they feel secure, they start branching off. When that happens varies child to child. So a child with a more what we now have kind of termed higher needs or intense temperament may take longer to branch out, may have a longer period of building that safe base than a child who has a more easygoing temperament. But once they have that, then they start exploring out. But when they face something that's stressful, that can lead them right back to that earlier behavior of very high needs. So I think parents often get in this lull where they think, oh, my kid's finally out of it. They can kind of go off, and then suddenly 2 months later, oh my God, they're just like a newborn again, clingy and everything. And it's just that they've been taxed. They've been facing something that really pushes their anxiety, pushes their sense of safety. And so they're returning to you as that safe base to say, hey, can you help me cope with this?
Right. And I see that with my 18-year-old, my 13-year-old, and my 18-year-old just graduated from high school and had a lot of
congratulations.
Thank you. It's a very, very big deal here. So we're very excited, but there was a lot of stress right at the end. And I saw him move back in, to connect and to work through the stress, and then back out he went. And so, and that's attachment. And here I am. And then, okay, now you've reestablished that safety within you. And now you're going back out into the world and to do what you need to do.
Yeah, exactly. And you as the parent are able to let him go out there. Sometimes there's almost two main problems we kind of hit, which is one, parents who are forcing this independence, pushing them out too quickly. They haven't built that base. And so you have children that don't really know what to do, but they don't have that secure base to return to. And then we also have parents that kind of inhibit that secure base. They're
Mm.
holding them back. And it can be due to their own upbringing of not feeling safe and having to cling on out of fear for their child. It can be, due to all sorts of other psychological issues. It could be not knowing better, their own fear just taking over and not having coping mechanisms or a support network themselves. And so these are the things. So you have to be able to both read your child well enough to know when they need you and keep them close and help them through it, but also know when to let them go and explore.
Right. No, you can't go, Zach.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. We've been talking with Tracy Cassels, and we've been talking about attachment. We're going to end our call for today. And next week we'll be back. We'll be talking about the most important elements of attachment for parents with children of all ages. And so thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Consciously Parenting podcast with Rebecca Thompson Hitt. For more information, visit our website, consciouslyparenting.com.